Hey, what's up, everybody? True believers, welcome back for another episode of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games podcast. This is episode number 239, even though I didn't change the overlay. It says 232 for the text scrolling by. I will fix that once my man TaoMaster gets on. This is... Just let me check the agenda, and I'll tell you. This is episode number 239, like I said, for the 28th of April in the year of our gaming 2022. Welcome back. We're going to be talking about games tonight, as we normally do, as is kind of our new shtick. We're going to talk a little bit of news, because it's been kind of light on the gaming. But here with me, as I have, as always, is my co-host in crime, Mr. TaoMaster99. How you doing, Tao?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Good. So let's go ahead and get right to it. Tonight is our fourth episode of the month, and so new format we've been going to, what we will always do, we have always done our PickZ PlayZ report, and so we used to do it every other week, I think it went. It's actually been so long of us doing the new format that I don't even remember the old format. So, but this
Long
is
gone.
but this is a long-running shtick of ours. This is a gaming assignment that we give to ourselves. It's kind of a topical assignment, and then each of the cast members, each of the co-hosts, goes off and kind of makes a decision on what game they're going to play. So we don't dictate what game by title we each have to play, but we put some parameters around it so that you're kind of cordoned into a guided subset of what you're going to play. So this past month's assignment has been as follows: with the formal announcement of a cloud gaming division under Xbox Game Studios Publishing, headed by Kim Swift, who was the lead designer of Portal. Play a game on some type of online streaming service, whether it's cloud, Stadia, Amazon, Luna, or whatever other service you may be a part of. Play any game of any genre and let us know how the experience was. But I will add, if you could play a game with multiplayer, either co-op or competitive, that will be extra points for you. Unfortunately, DBQ could not be here with us tonight. He has been playing Cyberpunk 2077 on Stadia. But TaoMaster, you have been playing Outriders on Xbox Cloud Gaming, XCG. So while I get the social media out and change this blasted scrolling overlay, why don't you go ahead and tell us what your past month's experience has been in cloud gaming?
Okay, yeah. So actually, I played a multitude of games, but I'll talk about Outriders for now, and then I got another one I'll talk about later. Outriders is the kind of shooter, shooter looter or looter shooter is how they say it out now. You get various guns, armaments and stuff like that you can pick up while you're playing, and it was been pretty smooth. There were some issues that I had originally. Well, I thought there were issues. So the controls I thought were a little weird, I guess kind of loose. I guess you could say it was almost kind of like when I first started playing Apex. Like it just seemed like a little too loose to me. Like kind of like you were kind of sliding around a little bit too much, which you can do in Apex. But just when I was like looking around, it looked like it just felt like I was like just moving too quickly or almost. And I thought what I thought at first it was because of xCloud. Maybe there's like some kind of delay or something, or lag, or rubber banding or something. But I did actually play it on, I think it was the Xbox One X, locally on the machine, and it was kind of still the same way. So I think it was just more of a sensitivity thing, which I adjusted, and finally I was able to get used to that. But back to the xCloud. Like I said, it was pretty smooth experience. Now I only played here at home. At my house, I didn't try this particular game outside, over Wi-Fi or over like mobile or like a outside Wi-Fi connection. So it was pretty smooth. Like I was probably like I don't know, like 10 at the most, maybe like 20 feet away from my router. So I was never really too far away. But it was, like I said, it was totally smooth. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play co-op. I didn't get to play with anybody on this one, so I couldn't, at least on this particular game, I couldn't try out or test out that aspect of kind of the assignment. But just overall gameplay, I'm really liking this game. I've been kind of playing it. Dropped off a little bit off the last couple weeks, and I can't talk about what I've been playing later on why. But But otherwise, when I've been playing, I'm really liking the story. I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago, or maybe earlier in the month. There's kind of a time jump that happens near the beginning of the of the story. So you start off. Well, I mean, it's all in like far future, anyways. But something happens where you kind of like go to sleep or something, and then you wake up like I think it's like 30 years later or 35 years later. So that it kind of picks up, and then obviously there's a big mystery. I'm like, what's going on and all that. But it's fun. I really like it, and I think I mentioned this last time too when I was talking about it that I didn't realize at first that other than just like the gunplay, there's actually powers, kind of like in Destiny, basically. Like you got different classes that you can pick, and they each have a certain power. So I did the Technomage, I believe is what it's called, or Technomancer, and he has like magic. I guess you can say magic powers. He's got like a cold power, not right now at least. I don't know if I get like any other kind of elements or anything like that later on, but I'm using that. And like I said, everything's been running really smooth. Once again, though, I've been here at the house, so but still, you could have issues too, even if you're fairly close to your router or your modem. So, but it's been a pretty smooth gameplay so far. I think there's only like one time maybe where I locked up and I had to like just shut down out of the app totally and then kind of come back up. And it was fine after that. Like I think that only happened once. And I know Game Logic, you're questioning, like why would you want to do this, or why would this want to happen? But for me, a couple things. Why would you want to do like kind of cloud gaming, other than like going outside? Obviously, if you're outside your house, if you're going on vacation or maybe like a business trip or something like that, well, that kind of makes sense. But here at my house, there's two things. So I was running out of space on my Xbox Series X when I originally wanted to play this game. And I was like, I don't want to, it's fine. Like I've moved stuff around before. Like you can move stuff to your to an external drive. Obviously you can't play it if it's an Xbox Series X, but you can just store it there and then move something back, which I've done. I've screwed around with that. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. And I was like, oh yeah. And it just happened. I think when I wanted to play this, that you were able to actually stream from your actual physical Xbox console machine. So that's what I did. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then after that, that's kind of when I adopted the mobile side of it. And it was just kind of nice where I can, like if my wife or my kid are like watching TV upstairs on the big TV where I have my other Xbox, my Series X, my One X, and I couldn't play that. I was like, I'll just pop my phone. I got the little controller that I could slap on my phone. I could just play it that way. So, I mean, that's kind of the second reason, other than like I'm running out of space on one of my machines. So, but other than that, like I said, like I think like we mentioned before, like if you're on a business trip or something, it's kind of new. It's kind of cool that you can, jump in the Game Pass app and, pick them, you can't play all the games, but there's a lot of games that you can play remotely like that. So I've just been testing that out. And like I said, I'll talk about another game here in a little bit when we get into our round robin section. But yeah, so far so good. I mean, other than this, like Stadia is the only other remote or cloud service that I've tried, and even that was fine. Well, but once again, that was here in the house, so unfortunately, I didn't get to play that one at all outside of my home. So, but out of the two, this one kind of works out better for me, just because I got Game Pass, I got the Ultimate Game Pass, so I can I got all not only just first party stuff, it's a lot of third party stuff too, and a lot of indie titles that you can jump into if I wanted to, or if you wanted to. So, Game Logic. Any questions?
So I understand what the impetus was. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the at least the initial impetus was the fact that you were running out of space on your Xbox Series X, right? Okay. Yeah. And then the other one was, and I'm sorry, I was getting the social media out, was the other part that the screens in your house that just trying to look to do something while other people might be on screens, kind of like you do with your Nintendo Switch?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay. So one of my questions is, I asked you a couple episodes ago if you had picked up one of the extended storage cards on the Xbox, or had like connected a external USB drive, and then so you can at least download the game and store it on the drive, and then if you wanted to move things around because of what you were playing at the time, you could swap things out. Have you
Right.
done either? Have you done either one of those? Do you? I mean, after your experience in the last month, do you think that Xbox Cloud gaming is preferable to biting the bullet and getting the expanded storage card, or grabbing your old USB hard drive that you would have had attached to your One X, and using that as on-prem storage basically for hot swaps with your Series X?
Yeah, so I did have my original. I still have my original external hard drive that I had on the One X on there. So I just kind of kept it there. So obviously that's fine. I can do it through there. Now on the Series X, I actually bought another external drive so I can store not only the Xbox Series X games, but just my regular games that I wanted to play, because obviously I was going to fill that drive up pretty quick. And this is just a regular external drive. This is not the expanded storage. So, and I've done that. Like I've flip flop between the two, and this, for the most part, I mean, from a lot of the games, 5 maybe 10 minutes, to kind of not share it, but move it over, between the drives. So it's not like a huge amount of time, but my time is kind of limited to nowadays. So I just kind of want to jump into something and get going. So the xCloud is perfect for that. Like I don't even have to wait for like any updates or anything, because it should be already updated. Hopefully, I've never run into that issue yet. But I can just jump right into the game. And there's a bit of a little splash screen where it's connecting, and then you kind of load in. But I mean, it's fairly quick once you're in it. So I haven't had any issues that way.
Yeah, and back when I owned my Series X, that was kind of my experience too. Was that that time to hot swap was not excruciating. Like you could go like make a cup of coffee or let the dog outside or something in that time. But like you said, the point was it was something you had to think about, right? It was something you had to kind of program into your routine. It was something that generally I guess in some ways I sometimes complain about my setup, and I realize now that maybe it's sometimes favorable for game logistics, just in that I get up, I keep different hours than my wife, and so I come down here to get showered and dressed and ready for work and stuff, and then this is where I hang out at night. So it's both my get ready for work space and my electronics, digital hobby gaming space. And so like everything is down here for me basically, except what I need to sleep. And so what that allows for is when I come down here, like to get dressed in the morning, like in between puttering around, like I have time to like boot up a console and like start a download of a thing or switch things over, as part of my morning routine, just kind of in the background. But yeah, if you have to be more deliberate about your time, then I can definitely see where that's a hitch that you gotta maneuver around.
Yeah, and I say like the games that were like, I don't know, maybe like 40, 50-ish gigs in size, or probably more like the 5-minute mark. And anything above that, you obviously you start tech on time. So it's like, so you hit those Call of Duties and, the Fortnites and stuff like that. And, MCC, the Master Chief Collection, and those are huge games. So it's going to take at least 10 minutes to copy over. And like I said, like that's, like you said, it's not super long time, but, when you only have, maybe a half hour or 45 minutes to play, that's going to cut into your playtime. So, kind of that instant gratification, I guess, that you get from the xCloud stuff is kind of nice.
And yeah, that's kind of what I had noticed about cloud streaming. Back in the day when I did it, it was that it was the closest thing to being like a console, right? That I kind of had on hand in it. Besides the consoles that I had at the time, you could walk in, I could pick up a controller, attach it to a tablet, and jump right into Stadia, right? Or go to a lower power PC without a dedicated GPU, right, and jump into Stadia. So,
yeah.
So yeah, I see that it has its place. I think given the option myself, I would just get an extended storage card, or I would hot swap, with hard drives, just because. I always struggle to do cloud gaming when I'm at home as a matter of real gameplay. Like I mean, kind of like I talked about last week, right? It's a let's keep the equipment warm so that when I do have to go somewhere, it's not a big startup, opportunity cost to get it all configured and throw it in a bag. It's, keep it up to date so that, all the operating systems and app updates are applied. But whenever I have been cloud gaming here, I've always got the thing in the back of my head, like, I'm not spending time on, my RTX 3070 Ti right card or some other piece of hardware.
Yeah.
It's a different, for me it would be a different formula now that I don't have consoles. But at least for me right now, I'm like teetering on this precipice of like, I have a Steam Deck on order, do I keep the order? Is that really what I want to take with me when I go on travel? I have been contemplating going out and grabbing a Nintendo Switch OLED. So, I don't know. I just don't know. Of course, on the Switch, my problem was that, not problem, but my stick was that I'm not a big Nintendo mascot fan. So, most of what I was playing were ports of PC games.
Yeah.
And so the conventional thought was, okay, well, when the Steam Deck comes, if I get a Steam Deck, like, I can just play my, like, PC games there, not ported, right? I mean, it's kind of a port because running on top of Proton is not running on native Linux, but I don't know. I'm just in a mishmash, wishy-washy place. I'm not going to do streaming. I mean, I'm not going to do cloud streaming. So my part of this assignment was, what I said was I was going to at least reserve a pocket of the time that was supposed to go to this assignment and make sure that I went and canceled my Stadia account and my Apple Arcade account. I have not done that yet. It will be my intention to do that as soon as we get off the podcast tonight. So, but yeah. So I didn't actually play anything on cloud, from a cloud streaming service that I felt like I had done a crap ton of that over the last year. And so I guess I felt like I was ahead of you guys in the assignment. So I decided to, like I said, I was gonna take the time to cancel my services, which I have not done much effort towards doing that other than writing it down on a task list. But hopefully we'll get it done tonight.
The to-do list.
So, I mean, for you, having done the experiment for a month, I mean, are you going to continue? I mean, you've got Xbox Cloud Gaming as part of your Game Pass subscription, so you're going to keep that. So I guess my one question is, are you still, like, now you disenrolled from Stadia already before, correct? And you haven't gone back?
Yeah, it had been a while already, yeah.
Okay. And then, since you've got the cloud gaming, I mean, you don't absolutely have to partake of it. I mean, it's a rider on the subscription anyway. But from your actual use case and like the value that you've gotten out of it, do you tend to continue doing that, or are you gonna maybe use some of the alternate methods that we talked about, with the expanded storage or hot swapping the USB storage, or are you gonna continue going on with the cloud gaming?
Yeah, I'm gonna continue with the cloud gaming. I think I mentioned this last week, maybe a couple weeks ago. I probably won't continue with Outriders just because of just the aspect and the nature of the gameplay is kind of like a little bit faster and a little more hectic, and it kind of hard to tell what's going on the little screen, like if I'm just doing that on my phone. But I mean, I could still do it on the consoles if I wanted to, and I will, because like I said, here on the Series X at least, I don't have it installed right now, so I'll just keep playing it through xCloud. But then from like on the phone side, like I'll probably pick like smaller games, like indie games. There's some that's not as involved. But yeah, I'll keep going with that. Like I said, I think I mentioned last week too. That's kind of my experiment for this year. So last year was my year of Game Pass, and it's going to be my year of xCloud. So I'll continue with it this whole year.
All right, very cool. Heading on to our next segment, the regular rundown and round robin. I will kick it off, starting off with my recent experiences in Dirt Rally 2.0. So one of the things that I've been getting back to, or at least I was getting back to, was, now that I'm dedicated to playing on PC, one of the things that I wanted to extract out of that, was getting more time back in simulations, driving simulations, space flight simulators, Terran flight simulators, etc. I was kind of going down that path, and I've swerved a bit due to a lot of conversations that I've been having on Twitter and social media, and with other people who kind of cover the gaming industry. I think one of the things that I'm definitely at fault for is I don't have FOMO, but there are times where when I get in a argument with someone, or at least a difference of opinion, with other podcasters, or other people, the chat watching a podcast. Sometimes I walk away from that and I go, well, maybe I should change my mind about how I feel about that. Maybe I should go try something out that is different or not my norm. But we'll talk about what that got me back to a little later in the show. But, at least when we came out of the podcast last week, what I was focused on was getting back to simulators. And so I, reloaded Dirt Rally 2.0. Love the game. I've been, a player of the Colin McRae, may he rest in peace, Dirt Rally series since it started on PC. And then it, migrated onto console, and now they've kind of split their development pathway, and they kind of do this TikTok thing where they do, their kind of more realistic simulator game, Dirt Rally, and then they do the Dirt series, which is kind of a little bit more in that kind of gymkhana kind of ethos, and a little more casual, and kind of a little more kind of hype events, and a little bit more of kind of like the exports kind of background tapestry kind of wrapped around it with some of the dialogue and voice actors and stuff. But in this case, it was Dirt Rally 2.0, one of their, their last simulator games, or recent simulator games. So I'm hoping. It's a little weird. We don't know what's going to go on with Codemasters. Obviously, one of my top 5 favorite studios of all time. They have been acquired by EA, and we're going to talk a little bit in this section after I get done talking about Dirt Rally 2.0 about, what they've been up to. I don't know if they've expanded or if they have room on their dance card to do the next Dirt Rally. That's what I want out of them. They did, if I'm not mistaken, they did Dirt Rally 2.0, and I think they did Dirt 4 after that. So they are due for Dirt Rally 3.0, but I just don't know, when that might be coming. They have Formula 1, they have F1 22 coming out in June. Normally, I would think if we were going to get a Dirt Rally 3, it would be kind of this fall, winter, but I just don't know. But they have another game now, theoretically, on the slate for that. So maybe next spring we'll get the next Dirt Rally. There were a lot of complaints when this game came out about, the way they had kind of yanked back some of the content in terms of kind of what was in it from Dirt Rally. Not officially called Dirt Rally 1.0, but for the sake of conversation, I'll call it Dirt Rally 1.0, which had come out, 18 months or so before. And so, a lot of stuff had been moved kind of into a season pass kind of thing. But, look, a season in the game is 36 stages, essentially 36 races. And I'm like, I have gotten nowhere near through all of that content, because I don't sit and squat on the game and play it, forever, and then, complain that there's not enough content. So I know that there are some diehard fans. This is a game that pairs very well, kind of like a fine wine with, a really nice wheel and pedal set. I have the Thrustmaster I think it's the TR300S wheel and pedal set, which is just a beautiful piece of gear. I didn't use it for this session. I kind of go back and forth between using the wheel and pedal set, which is really a lot of effort. The pedals plug into the thing with one cable, and then the whole thing plugs into your USB with another cable. But that thing stinking has its own power cord. So I was like, I think I'll just grab my controller. So, I go back, and then I go back and forth between the external view and the internal view. So I was so I was playing this game on my RTX 3070 Ti, a recently acquired GPU that I picked up to get away from the AMD cards that I'd been having problems with. And it just, like, it's such a stark contrast in how it runs. And I have, throughout all these NVIDIA card generations, I've typically never bought the TI version of cards, like that incremental kind of half step above the baseline. I typically buy, like, the baseline cards when they come out. I typically target, like, an XX70 card, kind of that midpoint. I've never seen the point in stepping up to an XX80 type card. But with the way the market was and the way prices were, 3070 Ti's were, like, only running $50 more than 3070s. And in fact, for that card, I had actually been targeting, I was going to go ahead and make a luxury purchase and allow myself to buy a 3080 this time. But, like, literally the day before I was going to buy it, the price on the card that I was watching, like, dropped by, like, $70. And it was, like, there were, at that 3070 Ti, there were 3070s that were actually more expensive. And I was like, do I stay the course and get the 3080, like, the one time in my life, that, I was going to allow myself to indulge that much, or in doing so, ignore the fact that this 3070 Ti just, like, made some ridiculous price drop and sits at a really premium price point on the market. And at the end of the day, when I pulled the trigger, I was like, I couldn't ignore the sale. So, and that also, like, radically increased the 3070 Ti price to performance, ratio, in comparison to the 3080. So, but, like, this is the first time in my life that I've played, like, one of these hyper kind of realistic, and high-end graphical games from Codemasters, like a Dirt Rally or a Formula 1. And I'm playing, like, with all the bells and whistles turned on a 1440p screen, on a 144 hertz, monitor, and it's getting between 100 and 144 frames per second. So it's just an amazing experience. And what that does to you from a driving perspective when you have the car in the turn and, like, the linear distance that the car moves through, as frames roll, is so incrementally small that it looks so amazingly smooth and so close to, like, real world driving that, like, it was a near religious experience. I was just amazed. And, like, with weather and at night and with all the particle effects and everything, it made me reconsider. I was like, I think for the, remaining GPU upgrades that I have left in my life, I'm like, I don't know that I'll go, and I say I target that XX70 series card, but I usually, will get an XX70 and an XX60, but I'm like, after that, I was like, I don't know that I'll ever buy those 60 series cards ever again, if I'll stick with a 70 Ti or again, bump up to the 80. So it's a pretty neat experience. In the news, we have two related stories. This one on Gamerant.com by Bryce Jackson. Codemasters' new Formula 1 title and release date revealed. I kind of mentioned this a little bit before. Codemasters' new alliance with Electronic Arts for F122 will bring in new game physics, dynamic racing options, and enhanced customization options. With the 2022 Formula 1 season well underway, fans of the World Championship eagerly awaited news of the new title for the year. With developer Codemasters now fully embedded within the EA ecosystem, fans were enthusiastic to see what changes would come out of this new deal and what it would mean for the franchise. The announcement today ushers in a new era of Formula 1 video games. So this, for the first year now, it will be called EA Sports F122, which is, even last year, I think it was just still called F1 21. Includes all the new technical regulations from the actual Formula 1 system. Comes out on July 1st, so a little bit earlier than it has in previous years. A teaser trailer is out that really doesn't show too much, but they do have some additional cosmetic options and some more options available in the race weekend. I think So they are making this one compatible with VR, so it will be available on the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive. And it will introduce sprint races, a new qualifying format that was introduced last year. Okay, so the sprint. I'll need to pull the thread on that and see if that's actually in but basically it's a 1 lap. So they've always had 1 lap qualifying, but this one will actually be 1 lap qualifying with opponents on the grid, and you do 1 hot lap. And then that sets the starting order based on how you finish, but also the top 8 finishers get some additional points for the race weekend. So I'll have to see if that's a realistic port over from from the actual Formula One. I hadn't heard about that going on this season, but there it is. If you buy the Champions Edition, you will get 3 days of early access, a bunch of extra pit points, and some additional cosmetics. So that's the one thing that I would say is the detractor from F122 is just over the past couple iterations they have been moving in the direction of microtransactions and season passes, which don't affect me. I'm able to ignore them and not participate in that stuff, but it does create a little bit of messiness on the UI, just because they put up your cosmetic options not entirely in your face, but just kind of somewhere on the screen where you're always kind of consciously aware of them. So it's a little more obtrusive than like what Fortnite is doing, where they've just pushed all that stuff to the background and you don't even see it, and the way some other games handle it. But the really big news was this story over on WCCF Tech by Ule Lopez. Need for Speed Future is currently handled by Codemasters Cheshire. So a new Need for Speed game kind of has to happen soon, given the last major release was Hot Pursuit Remastered, and nothing after that for about a year and a half. No DLC for Heat, the series' venture in 2019. No updates to Hot Pursuit Remastered, none of that. It's been rather quiet for the series since November 2020. This is basically about a rumor. I think that trickled out maybe a little bit from their earnings call. I'm not sure. But they've been, apparently Cheshire has been working with Criterion, and so the quote is, Codemasters Cheshire will come together with Criterion Games to create the future of Need for Speed, starting with the next Need for Speed title, then extending to future-facing initiatives. Codemasters Cheshire will work with Criterion on creative, technical, and feature execution in service to the vision outlined in the Need for Speed strategy. So this is the studio that was responsible for Dirt 5, which, not the best Dirt game, in my opinion, in recent years, but it kind of just rode the edge of, like, critical acceptance. Although some fans were, their opinions weren't as high, and a lot of that was mixed up in the whole console war thing, and whether it looked better on PlayStation 5 or Xbox. So, and I guess they have... So it says... So the WRC FIA Rally Series is actually a series from another developer, but I think there are people who make up Cheshire who are veterans from that series. And that series actually, I felt, because there hasn't been a recent Dirt Rally game, has been like the premier rally racer on the market. So this is a good sign. Again, Codemasters is one of my top 5 favorite studios of all time, and so the fact that Need for Speed, which in my opinion has been struggling since Need for Speed Rivals, as far as I'm concerned, which was a PlayStation 4 game, so that was like 2000. I think it was a launch title, so that was like 2013. So in my opinion, we haven't really gotten a game worthy of the mantle from that franchise since 2013. So hopefully this will be a return to form. I don't know, Tao, did you have any... I know I went on for a while there. Any questions or comments?
No, I was just going to mention on the F1 series at the end of that article. I guess it used to have a story mode in it on the F1 series. They're saying it's not going to have it this year. It may return in the future. But I don't know if you ever like went through that, or if you just did like the races and didn't kind of worry about that kind of mode.
The only time I've always liked the fact that the story mode was there. I thought it was a very unique iteration to inject into a racing game. There are RPG like elements in the game, regardless of the story, so I think it's fine. It depends on exactly what they're removing. So the big story mode was 2 or 3 years ago. I think F1 2017 or 2018. Whenever they brought the F2 series in and had that be kind of the start, an optional start where you could start in F2, races there, and then move on, and then you would get offers from teams depending on how you performed and moved up to F1. The way they did it at first, you played like you just got dropped into the middle of a race, and it was like a situation or a scenario, and you had to race till the end. You had to do one race with like critical damage. And they set up this rivalry, which you didn't really have any choice about. It was just they pitted you up against, somebody who was supposed to be your rival. And there were these story-based kind of cutscenes between you, your partner on your Formula 2 team, and a big rival. And then all three of you would go on to F1, at the same time. So that was kind of a really big story mode. And then I want to say last year, so they did that 1 year. The next year, you could play the entire F2 season as a precursor to your F1 season, but there weren't really those story elements in it. Then last year, and it's a mode I didn't play, last year there was apparently like a really big... I felt like, again, I didn't get into it, but my impression of it was that it was kind of... like these NBA 2K, I think you were mentioning last week, MLB kind of has something like that, where you basically create a character and you focus on that one character.
Yeah.
My sense of it was kind of like that, and I didn't get into that. So I would, in terms of last year, I would call that must be what they're talking about for the story mode. But even then in the regular F1 mode, you still went through a character creator, created your physical appearance, like got all your, major racing suit and livery and all that. And there have still always been cutscenes that were like when you were like talking to the media. And last year they have like this series of like interviews that you go through with a person. And basically it's kind of a mini game and kind of a meta within like the career mode where the results of your answers to the media impact your team, because that's a dynamic that goes on in real world Formula 1 today. Drivers get interviewed by the press, and when you say something like, well, I really felt like the car's aerodynamics were horrible, and we didn't have like your aerodynamics team for your car, who never gets interviewed, gets pissed, right? Because you've just talked crap about them on the air, right? But you could also say things like, the car really came together, the team's really been working hard on gearing and reliability, and that was obviously a key part of it. So if you give an answer like that in real world Formula 1, then your mechanics, your mechanical engineering shop or whatever who's working on that part of the car, gets a morale boost. And so they kind of simulate that in the game, and that then impacts your R&D pipeline. So my hope is that they keep that stuff. I don't think I care if they get rid of the whole big like cutscenes of like with characters where you're supposed to like have these rivalries and all that stuff. But if they take out every story-based element, even what I guess what I'd call the lightweight story element, that would be a problem. That would make me angry, because that would be the EA nobody wants, first person, nobody wants, single player story driven content. They all just want multiplayer.
Yeah.
And F1 does have multiplayer, so that would really bother me, because the other thing is that's then them from a corporate perspective reaching in and deliberately altering kind of the path that Codemasters was on, and kind of the precedent they've been setting over the last few years, which when Codemasters was acquired by EA, I just pushed the I believe button and was like, they'll be fine, they're not going to interfere in their formula too much. That's a dev studio that's doing well. It would have been perfectly fine on their own. So EA won't interfere. But But if they literally strip out all of the RPG elements, all of the like interviewing with the media cutscenes, that to me is going to take away a huge part of the character of the game, and I will probably search for another franchise to go do something else.
Yeah, they say the breaking point story mode, so I don't know if that was like the one where you create your character.
Well, you create your character, I think, no matter what. But that breaking point one was the thing that had the really, really heavyweight story stuff that was like, what you talk about in MLB and what DBQ talks about in NBA 2K, and that I don't need. That I'm fine if they take that away, because I would suspect that not a ton of people played that. I would suspect that there was some hardcore that did. But as long as they leave the press interviews and the RPG elements in the regular career mode, then I'll be okay.
Yeah.
So you want to talk a little bit about your time in Ark Survival Evolved?
Yes. So this was the other game that I actually played on xCloud, along with just on my normal console. And this is like probably like one of the main games I've been playing the last week, or even like 2 weeks, really. I won't say the problem with it, but like kind of the thing with it, and just because it's a survival game, so you have to grind a lot for materials and stuff like that. But there's the extra add thing here where you can tame you tame the different dinosaurs and ancient creatures. And that takes a little while too. Sometimes they have like 2 times or 3 times, like weekends, kind of like they do with like shooters, where they have like double experience points. Weekends where they have like 2-time taming, or 2-time you get more material or something like that, as you're gathering stuff. So I think they just had that over the Easter weekend, I believe, where they had that kind of 2-time. I think it was just taming. Like they do different things sometimes, depending on what's going on. So I've kind of have a couple of different bases actually built in the world that I'm working in now, and with my son too. I've been playing with him and one of his friends. So that part of it's not getting too bad, just because there's certain animals you can tame that gather materials better than just if I'm just using my pick or my axe or whatever. So I've gotten those animals, and I've gotten those going. But the taming is still kind of takes a while, and depending on like the level of the animal itself. So I'm just kind of working through that. And then this was the other game I also had played on xCloud. Now this one I did play outside of my house. I actually played it remotely, and I have a 4G phone, so it's not like I'm on 5G. But it played fine. Like it played just like I was playing if I was playing, Outriders, and in my living room. It's pretty smooth. Like I didn't have any hiccups or anything. So I'm kind of happy that worked out. Especially with my older phone, I got a Google Pixel 3, so that's few years old. I think like 4 or 5 actually. But like I said, it ran pretty smooth. I didn't have any issues, and I just jumped in there real quick. I think I can't remember what it was. I had to like check something around one of my bases or something like that. So I was only on it for maybe 10-15 minutes. But it ran pretty good while I was playing it. But so playing on there, and then once again I'm playing my Series X and my One X, depending on where I'm at in my house. But just kind of tread on through there and just having a good time. I like, even if I'm not playing with my son, obviously it's always, usually better if you're playing with somebody. But even just playing solo, like there's tons of stuff that I can do just by myself, like gather stuff or, build my building or my little fort area. So, there's always things to do and tame stuff. So I've been having a lot of fun with that. Okay, so with that, any questions on the Ark gameplay at all?
The one thing I wanted to ask is, so do you play with anyone else in Ark?
Just my son, and sometimes one of his friends jumps on also. And then like within the game, you can make tribes, which is basically like a clan or whatever. So you got to invite people to the clan or to the tribe, and then as they're doing stuff, you kind of share XP, and it's just a little bit. You don't get like a ton of XP from that experience, but it is something at least. So that helps you like level up, and you can unlock different things that you can craft and stuff like that. So, but other than that, there's people sometimes that are on the server that that have always been there. I'm assuming because they got like huge bases and just all kinds of animals, and I'm assuming another thing you can do. I think there's like 4 or 5 different maps you can play on. I'm playing just on the original map right now. But some of the other maps they have where you can actually tame different animals that aren't on that original island. But when you beat that map, because there's a whole system where you can beat things, and I won't go into it right now because I'm probably never going to do it because it's really involved. But you can, once you beat that map, you can actually transfer creatures over to like another map if you want to. So people have done that because it was kind of nice. People have just given us stuff like we didn't even ask or anything. Like they just come drop down and like, hey, here you go, and they just throw something down. So it's kind of nice that they do that. So it's kind of a good, pretty good community so far that I've seen, at least on this server. I've only been on the one server, so it's kind of nice. But yeah, other than just my son, though, I haven't really played with anybody else right now.
All right, cool. So I guess the clans are kind of like corporations in EVE Online would be. Sounds like.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah, we're just playing PvE. So there's PvP, like separate PvP maps that you can also do. So we're not gonna. I don't want to do that because I don't have that kind of time to like sit there and watch my base and like, set up our armaments and all this defensive stuff. It's just not gonna happen.
Right. So you want to talk to us a little bit about the news articles that were related to your gameplay experience here?
Yeah, so I got a couple of Xbox-related news items here. So the first one, some NPD numbers for March. And this is the article is from GameInformer.com. And in here they mention how the Xbox One Series X and S was the best-selling hardware platform for March in the US in terms of dollar sales, and then just kind of the best-selling console overall. For the quarter leading up to that first half of the year, that first quarter of the year, and then it was also the best-selling in dollar. Well, yeah, it was best-selling in dollar sales for the entire first quarter. But the Switch still came out on top as far as units sold for the month and for the first quarter of the year. Let me see. I get some numbers here if I can find some. And then overall, they're mentioning how they don't mention like the numbers. I forgot that Xbox doesn't really do that anymore. They don't give out like dollar amounts or like units sold. But just going through the article, overall, hardware dollar sales dropped 24% in March compared to 2021. And it's down to 515 million in total. First quarter sales have reached 1.2 billion. Yeah, 1.2 billion, which is down 15% compared to the first quarter of last year. And then just they just mentioned how it's a decline overall in hardware sales in 2022 so far. So I don't know if you have anything you want to comment on that portion of it as far as sales numbers and stuff.
Yeah, so have had a dozen conversations about this. So obviously the Xbox faithful are riding high right now, and it'll be, I suspect that the over 50% of that number is made up of the Series S. Over 50% is probably a generous ratio. I wouldn't be surprised if it was closer to 60 or maybe a little bit over that, where the S. The other thing that I've mentioned is I feel like, as the generation goes on, when an Xbox Series E or whatever or Y is introduced, that is like the successive skew to the Series X, that it's an easier argument, right, for a person who owns a Series S to say, hey, even if I'm just going to take this down to GameStop and get $99 for it, that's still $99 off the new $500 thing, right? But, for people who hold on to their S, I just don't know, once we get past the halfway point of the generation, then I start wondering, if, you start seeing games that really impact its performance to where, it doesn't keep up. I think there's a lot of I would contend wild conjectures that, that's going to happen sooner. But again, as I've told people, like the most popular card out in PC gaming right now is the GTX 1060. That's a card that came out 6 years ago, right? Like, developers understand that, an RTX 3080, 3090 is the thing that they want to make sure right, that they allow to perform in their game, but they can't ignore the people who own the GTX 1060. And so what I've been saying is this notion that, games are going to run away from the Series S and outstrip it, and it's just going to underperform for the whole generation. I'm like, if the Series S is greater, is 60% or more of that number, like, developers can't ignore the Series S, right? And the notion that it's then holding the generation back again. They're making these games for both the Xbox and PC. I don't know how the Series S stacks up to a GTX 1060. I just know that a GTX 1060 is older, and they're not going to ignore it. So I just don't believe that the Series S is the lowest common denominator. It's somewhere in the band, but in my mind, everything from the bottom of the heap, from the lowest common denominator up to the top, up to the hardware baseline right under the top line thing, is holding gaming back. Like, it's not just about the least common denominator, it's about accommodating everything, from there to the top and in between. So, I think the Series S will be fine over the lifetime, and it'll be interesting, if we ever hear, what the saturation is of that console. Because again, I just go back to, look, when people are out, they say they want a next generation console, and when parents are out to get a next gen console, and you're like, wait, this thing costs as much as the Nintendo Switch? Like, that's an incredibly, in my opinion, powerful value proposition, right? For a console that runs at 1440p, can do 4K, like, it can do upscaling. It can do 4K with upscaling. That's still, in my opinion, that's still more technically impressive than the Nintendo Switch, and it costs the same price. So,
yeah, and probably depends too, like well, I guess that kind of brings a couple questions to my mind here while you're talking. So, do you think this console generation will last a little bit longer than the last one, or maybe even the previous one, just because of the hardware difficulty, finding one out there? Because I've been to stores now, and I still have never seen an Xbox or even a PlayStation, in the store, even an S, like on a store shelf.
Yeah, no, I got in a very very contested conversation about this with some people who disagreed. In my opinion, no.
No.
What I think is going to happen, and it's not because I think it's because what we're empirically seeing, right? I think what's going to happen is the RTX 3000 series cards, and even like the AMD Radeon 6000 series cards, and the Xbox series console and the PlayStation 5, they're kind of going to become the lost generation, right? Of just these devices that not a lot of people had. I don't, the march of technology is going to go on. AMD is about to roll out, right, their next series of chips, both CPUs and GPUs. NVIDIA is going to roll out its 4000 series cards. I think the earliest ones of those are supposed to arrive this fall. Like, they're not waiting. Like, in order to remain competitive, they're going to keep iterating. And as long as there's, and especially because there's competition. I think in the time period where there was something like where AMD wasn't releasing competitive chips, Intel pumped the brakes, and you saw long periods where there were not, like, competitively evolving Intel CPUs. Because Intel was like, we don't have to. Like, and so you could noticeably lay down the roadmap and compare it against, like, past iterations and see kind of the slowdown in cadence and velocity. And NVIDIA has done the same thing at times when Radeon GPUs were not competitive. But right now, like, AMD is competitive with NVIDIA. AMD is competitive with Intel. The PlayStation 5 and Xbox are super competitive. What's going to happen is we near the end, because even last generation, people were like, there's no reason for these consoles to upgrade. Like, we're not tapping them to their max, right? But the fact of the matter is that when sales start to level off and then start to decline, that's when they go, we need to reintroduce new hardware. And so, no, I personally don't think... I think this console generation is going to be... I mean, if it gets extended, it'll be extended like 1 year, and we'll get an 8-year console generation, but I feel like it's highly likely that you'll get 7. Now, I think from the Microsoft side, I think that they are done with generations, and so I don't think... I think what we will see from now on is Xbox Series, right? And we're just gonna add a letter. So I joke, but I seriously think the next thing we're gonna see is in Xbox Series E or Y. I don't know how they pick their letters, right? But I think
and that kind of goes along with my next question. I was like, do you think there's going to be another generation, or is that just going to kind of iterate in every, I don't want to say every couple of years, but maybe longer than that, maybe every 4 or 5 years or something?
I think the Xbox will. I don't know that it'll be 4 or 5 years. I'm trying to remember so the Xbox One came out in 2013. The One X, when did that release? Was that 2017?
I'll do some research here while you talk.
Yeah. So, I mean, people will be lucky, I think, if it's 4 years. I really think, so maybe it'll be 4 years this time around, but it really wouldn't surprise me if what Xbox tries to get down to is 2 years. I think from a hardware and a technology refresh perspective, that's what makes sense. But I think they've got to figure out how much the market's going to tolerate for the people who are like, if they bought a console 2 years, like, the logical or rational consumer would say, if a vendor's on a tick-tock cycle, I'm just going to either synchronize with the tick or I'm going to synchronize with the tock, and I'm not going to be aggravated about the people who are getting the tock, right? I've started to dislike this comparison to the smartphone model because I think people just get it really twisted up. But, my wife gets the new Galaxy every 2 years, right? So she got a Galaxy S20, then she's going to get an S22. If I buy an iPhone 11, I'm then next going to get an iPhone 13. I don't get aggravated about what's on the iPhone 12. I just say, oh, cool, that will be in next year's model and I'll get it then. But gamers seem to be a unique consumer beast. And I just think, like, there's going to be a swath of gamers who are like, if something comes out 2 years after they bought the Series X, they're going to be aggravated that they don't have what's in the Series E. They're not just going to logically say, hey, I'll just wait and get the Series G that'll be out 2 years from now and all will be good. And that's just the natural Moore's Law and march of technology. So we'll see. Did you find looks like you found the...
Yeah, so the original Xbox One was 2013, like you said. And then the Xbox One S was I just lost it. 2016. And then the Xbox One X was 2018. So actually it was 2017 too. That's weird right now. Because
it was either a very late November or a December release date.
Yeah. I'm sorry, 2016 for the Xbox One S, and then 2017, like a year later, for the Xbox One X.
Right. Yeah. So they allowed 4 years in between, and that doesn't surprise. I wouldn't be surprised by them if they try to get it down to 3 years. But yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah. So 3 years from the S, and then 4 years for the X.
Right.
With the cloud, the X Cloud that they've introduced now for a few years now, or a couple of years, I guess. I guess it's technically still in beta. I think. I think it says that when I was loading it up. But do you ever think, and this is kind of like a mythical thing because I think they've been talking about this, or there've been rumors about like the just a cloud version of an Xbox, like a Roku size, something you plug your TV just to do like cloud gaming stuff. Do you ever see that coming out? I can kind of see it, I guess, but I mean, I don't know. Like that seems to be them going all into the cloud stuff. And I don't know, like how widely, obviously we know how the infrastructure is in the U.S. And this is not even talking about outside the U.S., but just the U.S. is. Unless you're in a major city, and we've talked about this before, you're not going to get those great speeds to to use something that would work like that. But I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I mean, so most of the overseas cellular infrastructure is more robust than the United States because they've been more dependent on it, and so it's much easier. It's I should reverse that. It's incredibly difficult for them to dig underground cable, much more so than it is in the United States, and so by necessity, a lot of the rest of the world has become more dependent upon wireless frequencies. And so their wireless infrastructure is much better, and unlike here, wireless high-speed internet is a viable option outside of the U.S. And so I think that's why there's been this play for Xbox cloud gaming, to be enabled on handheld devices, because overseas, in India or other country, there are tons of people running around with very inexpensive Android phones, and now they have a means to attach to and access the Xbox ecosystem. We have a story from a couple months ago, I want to say, where what was reported was that that Microsoft had lowered the price, the subscription cost for Xbox Game Pass in India, and so. I think those countries will not be as bandwidth challenged. Now, whether or not they can pay for it, that's a different issue. I think one of the reasons why you're seeing advertising is because in a lot of countries, they are not able to afford subscription plans to broadband, to high speed broadband, and so there are more heavy. There's a greater preponderance of ad-driven internet access. And so, again, if they can put the ads in the games, and then that's the way to subsidize the cost of Game Pass for those countries, and then all of a sudden you get, millions of Game Pass subscribers that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten because you didn't have a business delivery model that supported it. I think that's a big get. So I think thumb drives, again, in the interest of... again, building bridges towards that consumer base that cannot afford the $500 obstacle impediment of a barrier of entry, into the consumer side of the market. I think those thumb drive type devices, could be absolutely, possible, and not even just for countries who are at a lower socioeconomic status than we are in the Western world. But even like in the Western world for millennials who don't like to own things, for people in Soho kind of environments where they can afford service access but live in very small apartments, right, in your big urban metropolitan areas, right. I think it's a viable alternative that a 30-something, right, in a middle class kind of apartment in New York, LA, or whatever, who maybe doesn't want like an Xbox or Great Scott, a PlayStation 5 with all of the room it takes up, as a big honking piece of artifactory in their tiny apartment, may want this little thumb drive thing that's the size of a thumb Roku or Fire Stick, that they can plug into the back of their TV, if they're in an area where they're just completely fine with playing Xbox cloud gaming.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, and that rumor has been around, I think, even from when the original Xbox One was about to come out, or after, not too long after it came out. So it's been around for a while. So we'll have to see, but how that pans out. All right, and then just real quick from the article here, as far as software. So they got the 20 best-selling video games of 2022. I'll just go through the top 10 real quick. Elden Ring is number one, and that actually has kept the number one spot since February. Gran Turismo 7, which came out at the beginning of March. Kirby: The Forgotten Land, I believe, was near the end of March or mid-March. MLB The Show 22. Number 4, 5 is Horizon Forbidden West. Number 6, Pokemon Legends Arceus. Number 7, WWE 2K22. 8, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, still up there. I'll be talking about that in a little bit. Number 9, Call of Duty Vanguard. And number 10, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins. Any surprises there that you see, or even in the other 11 through 20?
No, not really. It's been a fairly predictable, sales results of this year's game releases. Everything has kind of had enough room to breathe, I feel like.
Yeah.
I think the things that got released in closest proximity to each other were Horizon Forbidden West and Elden Ring, but those two games hit at a lot of overlapping demographics that are kind of in the same pocket space within the gaming community, I think, and a lot of people who had to make that choice, grabbed Horizon Forbidden West and either charged through it in time to get over to Elden Ring, or grabbed Horizon Forbidden West, put it on pause, went over to Elden Ring, and are now swinging back. So I think things have been fairly well spaced out so far this year amongst consoles and games that are on the same console.
Yeah, no GTA though. That's surprising. Not even in the top 20. GTA 5.
Well, I think the combination of last year and the atrocity of the trilogy remake kind of tarnished their reputation a lot. I think that combined with the news that they were looking at going to a subscription model or something, a paid subscription model with the GTA Online.
Yeah, GTA Online. Yeah,
I think just kind of rankled their consumer base as well. And now that I also think there was a news story about confirmation that GTA 6 was in progress. I think people are just kind of at the point now where maybe they're tired of paying for GTA 5, and they're like, let me just go play some other things until these guys finally release, GTA 6.
Well, they had the newest generation though update just recently, so
I know. Yeah,
I guess that didn't boost sales. So.
Nope, I saw a lot of that game coming out, and a lot of people were like, I've hit the point where I'm not paying for GTA 5 again.
Yeah. I think PlayStation was the only console where it was free, I believe. I think for the upgrade.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I believe. Yeah, something like that. All right, so yeah, that was it for the NPDs, and then just real quick, finally, I think this is the first confirmation of like a major conference or a direct, if you want to call it, for the summer, right around when E3 would have been. Obviously, E3 is not going to happen this year, but we have the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase on Sunday, June 12th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It'll be 12 Central and 1 o'clock Eastern. And then, of course, that's going to be on all your streaming services, YouTube, Twitch. They'll have it on Twitter, Facebook, and actually TikTok, too. It's interesting that they're going to have it on those other ones. But they don't have a time limit here. But I think it was about an hour and a half, I think, last year when they did this. So I'm assuming probably around the same time, maybe a little bit longer. I think it came out too. But
yeah,
I think that...
I'm guessing 2 hours, because they didn't really have a lot to show last year. So this year we've got a new Forza Motorsport coming out. We've got Starfield under discussion.
Yeah,
there's tons. I expect, a significant either a significant or many, either a single significant or many smaller announcements of changes to and good things coming oriented around Game Pass or other services. I don't think that they're going to let that service kind of lie stagnant, especially with PlayStation Plus revamped coming out. PlayStation Plus, revisited, Revolutions, whatever. So I don't think Microsoft is going to stand still and stand pat on Game Pass. I don't think PlayStation Plus is really a competitor to Game Pass. I think they're two significantly different approaches to those services, meant to feed two very different user bases. But by the same token, I think Xbox now feels like they are in a position to start leveraging strength and get out of this being back on their heels kind of strategic positioning, and to really start leveraging the faith and loyalty that they've, instilled in their user base, for the people who are super positive on Game Pass, for the people who are super positive on the Xbox Series S, for the people who are super positive on all these ways that Microsoft has enabled access to gaming via different models than the, flat legacy Cold War, like, pay me $60 for a game flat fee and then and go away kind of model. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what they come up with. And I want to say I feel like there's going to be a lot of nostalgia plays. I don't. The big problem is that they're walking into this event with the cloud of Halo Infinite hanging over their heads, and that. In fact, I think they have two major clouds hanging over their heads. One that they own, one that they got by way of marriage, and that's the Halo Infinite cloud and the fact that this is Bethesda's first real showcase since the Fallout 76 debacle. This is the first time that they're coming theoretically with something to actually show, and it's the first effort for them to show that they've got their mojo back. And they're one of the four fallen bees, right? Bethesda, Blizzard, BioWare. There's one that I'm missing. I had all these things organized in my head. I
don't remember what the fourth one is.
I can't remember what the fourth one is. There's four B studios that I feel like have I think it's Bethesda, Blizzard, not Bungie, BioWare. There's some fourth studio. Maybe the fourth studio is not a B. I'll have to try and remember. But there's four studios that are kind of falling. CD Projekt Red. So it's not a B. Yeah. It's the three Bs and a C. But there are these four fallen angels, which previously 3 years ago could like literally do no wrong. Like levying any criticism towards any of their games would just be met with like incredible vitriol in the past, and all of those studios have kind of fallen off their pedestal. This is Bethesda's first time coming back to the stage to really prove that they've gotten their mojo back. So I mean, there's high risk in this, and in Xbox's last showing, Xbox has still not gotten over the first Halo Infinite showing, right? Even the Halo Infinite showings that they made after that were still met with a lot of doubt. There were some faithful, but there were still a lot of doubters, and I think the doubter faithful demographic percentage has swung in the doubtful direction even more so since Halo Infinite launched. So they're coming back to the stage with not a lot of good news stories to tell in terms of real world actuals performance other than sales and marketing. And so it's really weird. It's a company whose sales and revenue, I mean, just talking about the Xbox division, whose sales and revenue is pointed sharply opposite from what you would say their like what the on the ground buzz is about that gaming division right now. Tons of people doubtful because they appear to be very detached and hands off from management of all of these studios that they've acquired. Tons of doubtful because of things like what went on at the initiative. Tons of questions about what's going on with the I forget what's the studio that does. There's a studio which just got hit for reports of toxicity.
On the Bethesda side, or
no, it's another studio that they acquired. It's a studio that they acquired where basically as soon as they were picked up, the owner and his wife like basically went completely hands off, took the money and ran. We're still supposedly in charge of the studio, but just left it completely unmanaged. I think it's the State of Decay studio.
Oh, is that Dead Labs? No.
I think it's.
Think so. I'll look it up.
Yeah, so they have a lot of kind of pig pen dirt trails, like trailing behind them as they're coming to the stage, and I don't know how they're going to shake that off. I mean, one way that they can shake that off is they can make an incredibly good showing of Forza Motorsport, like that can't tank the way the original Halo Infinite showing did, and on top of that, they've got Gran Turismo 7 that just recently came out. That, despite being fairly heavily laden with microtransactions, is one of the top-selling games, right, coming off the MPD charts. So I think a lot of people are excited about this showcase. I have always preferred Microsoft shows over PlayStation shows. You know, we don't have DBQ and Swiss on right now, but like those years leading up to like The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, where those things were highlights of the Sony shows, but where basically Sean Layden came out and then it was Trailer Palooza, right, for 20, 25 minutes with games being shown that had no release date on them or had release dates out that were just like the next calendar year with no even month around them. I never understood how there were people who walked away from those E3s and said, oh yeah, Sony won E3. And I'm like, the Microsoft show was incredibly more polished. And again, those were tough years in the Xbox One era, but to me, I mean, Phil Spencer was kind of becoming like the Steve Jobs of those stage shows. But since then, it hasn't been great. They got thoroughly like throttled during last console generation. So I feel like there's equal reason to be like vigorously excited about this upcoming showcase, just as much as there's reason to be just like hand wringing, like sitting on the edge of your chair about how this is going to go. Because I do feel like this is a showcase that Microsoft that Xbox division, they have to stand on what they show. I think they've gotten a lot of credit and a lot of goodwill for what Phil comes out and says, and a lot of credit and goodwill for what Sarah Bond comes out and says. And sometimes people stick with it based on people's trust and faith in those personalities. But I mean, now you're coming to the stage with financial performance that has been backed up by your consumer base. Like you can't, I feel like you can't come out and you can't fall short, so it's an incredibly high pressure event. I'm actually, after saying all that, I'm actually kind of really surprised that they told everyone that early that they've got a showcase coming up in June. I think given the most recent history, they would have been pretty quiet about it until like a week or maybe 2 weeks before. So I don't know. Shots fired, and Xbox fired first. It's now PlayStation's move, and I mean, the other thing I mentioned today is I hope, given that Microsoft has leaned forward, I hope that Sony responds and says when their next state of play is, and doesn't play this coy. Like I feel like they try and play the coy game a lot like Nintendo. Like Nintendo cannot tell you that a Direct is coming until the night before, and people will literally fall out of their seat, right? Call into work sick, right, to see what's coming to the Nintendo Direct. They're often, and even when people are disappointed, like, they get super excited, they get disappointed the next day in the Nintendo Direct. The very next time that Nintendo Direct comes out, they do the exact same thing. I feel like Sony's trying to play that game, and despite being the market leader, I don't think that at least the state of play environment, I still don't think that they have that marketing polish down to that level where they can play that game. So, I don't know. It'll be an interesting summer.
Yeah, that was Undead Labs, is the developers of State of Decay. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, that was April. Well, it was reported on April 1st, at least on IGN, that mismanagement and there's harassment allegations and stuff like that. So pretty much everything we've been seeing lately from other developers. Or I shouldn't say other developers, but certain developers. But yeah, there's I think there's like a big mystery though. Like even though, they got all these studios now, and even like a lot of them are they just gotten recently. So I mean, I don't really expect anything from them, too much. But there's like that. Well, it's like half a dozen, I think, studios that they've had now for like 3 years or so, maybe 4, maybe not even that long. But we've seen smatterings here and there. But yeah, we got Avowed coming from Obsidian, and we've got the remake or whatever it is of shoot, I forgot that game now. That the Playground Games is doing.
Yeah, Fable.
I'm sorry.
Fable.
Yes, thank you. So we got, we know those are coming eventually, and we still don't even know, I mean, those have just been CG trailers, basically, that they showed whenever 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. But, hopefully we'll start to see, at least a little something of what these studios have been working on and got going. Probably still not going to be released this year, more than likely. Probably still another year, at least another year out. But even with Bethesda, like we got Starfield, which is a new IP though. Like we really don't even know what it is yet, like how it plays. Is it just Elder Scrolls and Fallout in space, or is it something completely different? Is it a mishmash of things maybe, or we don't know. We really don't know what that is yet. So it's going to be interesting. I'm excited for it because I'm looking forward to Starfield for sure, because I've always liked, even though I had my problems with the Fallout series, there's still some things I liked, at least in Fallout 4. It seemed they got a lot better than in Fallout 3. So, and 76 I played a little bit of, and it was just more Fallout to me from what I've played. But it'll just be interesting to see what everybody else has, that what they have coming, because I think it is like kind of a complete mystery of other than those few handful of things that really don't know what they're going to bring to the show this year.
Yeah, and kind of after thinking about it and talking about it, like I'm actually going to ratchet up the expectations. Like Starfield. So I guess my feeling is we better walk away from the show knowing what Starfield is. Like I think the time of playing this, like if you're Kojima, you can do that with Death Stranding, and even with Death Stranding, I felt like that impeded the sales and the uptake of Death Stranding. You're not Kojima. Like the time for playing this koi game of the Rolling Thunder campaign. This is also not Halo 2. So you guys aren't spending $200 million on the marketing campaign for Starfield. I feel like we better walk away from the show knowing what Starfield is, and it better not be Skyrim in space or Fallout 4 in space. It better be that. It should have that in it. It better have No Man's Sky kind of stuff in it. It better have Destiny 2 kind of stuff in it, because it better warrant the investment. It better warrant an investment that takes me beyond the 40-hour one and done. It needs to be something that is a continuing living game. I don't really care if it's a game as a service, but if you did Fallout 76 and you've doubled down on that and you haven't walked away from that model, then you need to show this is supposed to be space exploration on an epic scale that has never been done before. You can't be Mass Effect. There's got to be dozens of planets. Again, I go back to No Man's Sky. There's got to be dozens of planets. There's got to be a reason for me to explore. It can't just be, I get in this ship, it's a painted background, the cockpit closes, the screen goes black, I hear a big warping whooshing sound, and then the cockpit opens again and I'm on another planet. There better be exploration, there better be space navigation, and so what we should see is Skyrim, Fallout 4, we should see No Man's Sky, and we should see Destiny 2, at a minimum, is what I feel like. After all of this, right, that is the price of what, like, I mean, this game was announced, 5 years ago? 6 years ago?
Yeah, I think just like, and they had that little splash screen right. Title. That was it. Yeah.
I mean, it was announced before we even knew about console generation 9.
Yep.
We had to guess that the next generation term in there really meant next gen hardware and wasn't just a reference to like next gen programming techniques and technologies. So out of the show, so we better get Starfield, and it better have those elements in it. We better get Forza. We better get Fable. I don't want to see what is the backyard bug thing that Obsidian rolled out.
Oh, I forgot what the name of that game was. Yeah,
Grounded.
Yeah, Grounded. Yeah,
I don't want to see that. You've deployed it. It's out.
I'm sure you're going to see something of that.
Unless you're going to talk about a pivot that raises that game up to Sea of Thieves level, I don't want to hear about it. Like Starfield, Forza, Fable, and at least one other, and id better come with something. I better see a Doom or a Wolfenstein. And it needs to be full blown. It needs to not be like the little expandable thing that they did with the Two Sisters,
Youngblood, I think.
Yeah, which was not received well by the gaming community. It reviewed okay, but the gaming community was was vocally not a big fan. So I feel like Xbox needs to come to that show trading on nostalgia, because that's what they've got to get back. And I mean, quite honestly, I'll add a fifth thing to it. Like, they have to show up and bring something with Halo Infinite that hasn't been announced in the roadmap. The roadmap for Halo Infinite is not the return to green plan. It is a Band-Aid. And so they need to show up at that show. They need to show up at that show showing that they have taken the 3-4 months between when they announce the roadmap and when they do that showcase to respond to it as if it is the crisis that it is, and add something to the promise beyond the roadmap that shows the fan base that there is reason to have faith that there is a true return to green plan. So they need to basically show up at that showcase proving that they figured something out that has them starting to deliver on the process and starting to over-deliver. Right? I've read the roadmap. It seems very familiar and very true to me, because I'm very familiar from the software world of when we deliberately package things and convey them in a way that is a very short bar for us to hop over. And that roadmap is a very short bar, I think. And so they've got to do something that kind of improves it, because people are... So they need to come with 5 things. That's games. And then they need to do something with Game Pass that... If Game Pass is the strength that they tout that it is, they need to do something that trades on that. So 6 things.
Just keep adding one more. Just like so they'll be Halo Infinite will be in the middle of season 2. I'm assuming, if they're doing it every quarter like most other games. So
well, season 2 starts early May. I think I want to say early
May
to mid-May.
3rd. Yeah, I was just looking up. Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, they could always they can always have that big thing for like the end of the year, I guess. Like, hey, this is going to be, the thing is too, like they still haven't released, the co-op campaign. They still haven't released Forge, which, I mean, like the initial release, like I mean, that's fine. Like, I think they've done that before, at least on the Forge side, like where they didn't release it with the game itself. And I've seen that, we've seen that before, so that's fine. They're obviously building something there. I don't know, so I don't know if they're trying to do Forge they want to like model it after something like with like Fortnite or something, where it's gonna like expand off to more than just, oh, here I can put like a bunch of I got prefab stuff. If they're gonna try to do something more than that, or like we don't know. Like, they haven't even really said anything about what Forge. I guess if you want to call it 2.0 or whatever, 3.0, however many iterations of it there have been so far. But that we still have those things like lying out there and haven't been, I think they just pushed back the campaign too, I believe, the co-op campaign part of it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, to August.
So I mean, there's a lot of, they've got to do something to get people kind of hyped for Halo again, I guess, if you want to say it that way.
And that's what, I mean, like, I feel like they can't show up and make an apology. Like, this is not the time, and I've appreciated it in the past, and I bought it in the past, and I've been okay with it in the past, and I've been positive about it in the past. This is not the time for Phil to come up to the stage and say, "Hey, we know that we have disappointed you, and we own that. That's on us." Like, no, they need to come to the show and they need to shadow drop something for Halo Infinite that starts the return to green. Right? They need to come. Like, they need to come to that show and either go, hey, we were planning on not having the co-op campaign until August, but we're ready to release it now as a beta, right? Or something. Or they need to show up delivering an additional mode, or they need to show up and, I don't know. I mean, you have a ton of people who are playing Halo the MCC, and because I'm not a big Halo the MCC player, I don't know how that transfers, right? How that progression transfers and rewards you in Halo Infinite. But one of the disagreements I had was, about how people feel about Halo the MCC versus Halo Infinite, and I feel bad because 343 worked incredibly hard at Halo the MCC, and they did return that to green. But and I hate to say that maybe that thing just needs to be retired now to kind of force everybody over to Halo Infinite, but it's Microsoft. They are very well accustomed to shutting down a version of Windows in an effort to force everyone over to Windows 10 or Windows 11. I feel like they need to come to that show with something that rewards the Halo Infinite player base, because, otherwise I just don't know what's going to happen with that franchise.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any cross-pollination between MCC and Infinite, because I know even on MCC, I didn't notice until a few months ago, they have seasons on there too, where they, it's all cosmetic stuff that they're releasing, but still, it's like they built something around that, that they're doing just for the MCC. So I don't know if there's any kind of cross thing there at all. But it's interesting you actually mentioned that. I mean, do you think because they're still working on MCC that maybe it's kind of taken away from Infinite? I mean, I know it's probably a separate team, maybe just I don't know if you call it a junior team, but not like the major players in 343 that are working on it right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, those things are done in two different engines, so I don't, so if you flipped people over from Halo to the MCC, they would have ramp up time and fam time that they would have to go through. And in the meantime, you would lose, productivity in the operations and maintenance tail of whatever is going on with the MCC, so I just don't know if that's the right move. They mentioned recently, I can't remember, I was just looking at the name of the studio, but they just brought the support studio that has helped them in the past on Halo over to a full-time support role. And so I'm hoping that that's, part of the special sauce that they need. But yeah, it's a quandary. But, I've been talking to people about it on Twitter, and I kind of went through a very laborious plan of outlining, if I were sent into 343 as a fire jumper, this is the way I would start, going around the horn to try and pull things back and get things stable, get the fan base to stop complaining, at least momentarily, buy myself some time, and then focus on, what's the next, critical thing that I need to fix. Did I need to fix staffing? Did I need to fix tech? Did I need to re-architect? Did I need to refactor? That... The things that I outlined that I would do if I were dropped in, that I would immediately fix out of crisis in order to get people to stop complaining. That thought process is what they need to show to me on the stage in June. They need to show that they have cherry-picked the 1 to 4 things that are a crisis, even if it's additional maps. A person who was in and around the conversations I was around, kind of denigrated the whole roadmap because it only had 2 maps in it. And I'm like, well, it only has 2 maps, but it has 4 LTEs that they're delivering, and then 6 persistent modes that are going to stick around. And, so there's a mix of LTEs, LTMs, and persistent modes that I think is sufficient content, but I'm the same way. I'm a map person. Even when I play Call of Duty, if you give me a bunch of stuff that I'm not going to play, I don't care what you're putting in Warzone. If you give me a bunch of stuff that I'm not going to play, I don't care. What I need to see and hear and know that there's maps going back into the rotation, because that's what really gets me excited in a Call of Duty season, right? And then a couple limited time modes is also good, as long as they are not so ridiculously Byzantine that, again, I'm I don't feel like playing this crap. It's super confusing, and I download sure don't want to go into a match and spend 20 minutes in it. It better be a short, 5 to 10 minute thing. But one of the things I talked about in that plan was I was look, you need to figure out if your big player base, if you're loyal and faithful, if maps are the big thing for them. And if maps are the big thing for them, you need to do something to figure out how to deliver those rapidly to stop the hemorrhaging. Because if you're delivering LTEs and LTMs and persistent modes and people aren't crazy about the modes, I feel the Halo community has always been crazy about the modes. That's actually one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of playing, is because whenever I get pulled in with other people, they always want to carry me off to play these crazy modes that don't make any sense to me. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to figure this out, man. I just want to play Slayer. I don't want to figure out the mongoose racing mode thing or how the hell that's supposed to work. Like, I don't want to be bothered with, like, all that fringe stuff. Like, I want to get the meaty core gameplay part, and to me, that's maps. So if I were part of their loyal, faithful consumer base, I'm like, drop some of the other stuff or push it out in the roadmap, deliver me 3 to 4 more maps, and then I'll probably shut up, right, for a few months, because I'll be like, that's what they need to figure out, and that's what they need to do, and I feel like that's what they need to message, in addition to some of that being shadow dropped on the stage in June. The challenge is much greater than even I talked about earlier today, I think. Hey, we are way, way over, and I've actually got a writing assignment I need to complete tonight, so I am gonna move us on to rapid fire. What's next up for me is I've been playing Star Wars Squadrons on this part of my road to get back to simulations. Incredible experience. I'm a big, flight stick jockey. I broke out my Logitech G X52 Pro. Wonderful experience. But most of all, for a person who has, not been enamored by Star Wars 7, 8, and 9, and could have done without them, this gets, and a person who, when I came into PC gaming, the thing then was X-Wing Alliance, which just lets you play, like, hundreds of, like, Rebel ships and Imperial ships and all sorts of ships that I had never even seen before. This kind of gets back to that, but most importantly to me, it hit a big nostalgia drumbeat with me when I came back kind of after about the 3rd or 4th mission, and at this point I've joined the Rebel Alliance. I'm in the hangar bay. I have some quick conversations with some of my fellow pilots, so it builds like that camaraderie with those NPCs. I go into the briefing room, the doors snap open, and who else is there? None other than flipping Wedge Antilles, who is literally like one of my favorite Star Wars characters, like, of all time. And I'm like, and then he starts talking. I'm like, hold on a second, is that actually the dude? And so I went off and Googled it, and it's I can't remember his last name, but Dennis something or other. I can't remember if it's Holbrook or something. But it's the guy who literally played Wedge in episodes 4, 5, and 6, and made his return in episode 9. And like that. That was one of those moments where I had to pause the game and just sit silently, emotionally. I mean, that's the type of thing that really super connects me with a game. So I had a wonderful experience. Performs great. Played it on actually I played that on one of my older systems with an RTX 2070, and it played remarkably well. So good times. You want to talk to us a little bit about? And the one thing I'll mention is there's been buzz that Aspire may go back and do remakes of the Star Wars Rogue Squadron games and port those to modern platforms, which I know makes people super excited. I missed kind of that drumbeat in console generations because I didn't have a Nintendo at the time. But I know that there are some fans out there who are hugely nostalgic of that. I don't know if that game was on other platforms. I think it may have been on PlayStation at one time. I don't know, or the OG PlayStation. But whatever the reason, I never played those games. And then I got on PC in the early 2000s, and it was X-Wing Alliance. So I will. So it'll be very interesting. I'll be very happy if those games come back. I love Star Wars flight simulation combat, not Battlefront. So giving me a true space flight sim with all the Star Wars dressings on it would be great. You want to talk to us a little bit about Mario Kart 8?
Yes, so I've been playing a little bit of that. Real quick, Rogue Squadron was actually, the original one was on N64 and PC back in 1998. And then the following ones were just on GameCube, and just GameCube actually. So 2 and 3 of the series. So, which I played 2. I don't remember 3, so I might have missed that one. Yeah. But yeah, the first 2 were really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't start building my own PCs until the tail end of the year of 1999. I bought a store-bought PC, didn't pay attention to what had come before it. Was just only focused on the new things. So I didn't have any history with PC gaming. So.
All right, and then Dennis Lawson was the actor who played Wedge. All right, yeah, real quick, I've been going through. I finally finished. I got through the normal tracks in Mario Kart 8, so I could start playing the new DLC tracks that they dropped a few weeks ago. And I was going to go play them actually today, and I didn't realize you actually had to download them. It didn't download automatically, so I was like, so maybe next time, maybe on the next show, I can report back on the new tracks. But yeah, I finished off the newer ones, or the original ones, So I'm doing that. And then real quick, just kind of going along with Nintendo, so a little bit of Nintendo news. Splatoon 2 DLC, which was the what was it called? The Octo expansion is now free if you have the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. So it's another added addition to the expansion pack. So that's kind of cool. I think that was kind of in conjunction with the Splatoon 3 release date and news that kind of was going around there a few days ago. So it's kind of nice. They kind of wrapped that all together in, within a few days. So.
Very cool. I have been playing more Destiny 2: The Witch Queen, and this is kind of when I talk about some of the conversations. So in the conversations that I have been involved in, I lodged the concept that maybe people who are unhappy with Halo Infinite could go play something else, and brought that back around to people were very upset at that suggestion, and then I brought it back around to if you're unhappy with 343, are you going to go back when they do deliver content? Everybody said yes. And I said, so if you're unhappy with 343, but you go running back as soon as they deliver new content, aren't you just incentivizing them to believe that the way they've been performing is okay? And I'm not concerned about whether or not I'm right on that point. It's just, it's something that I throw out there for people to consider. But out of that, I got a lot of ration about the fact that I don't love anything, and my philosophy of I don't get involved in any game that I can't walk away from in 30 seconds or less, kind of riffing on that quote from Heat. So I felt driven to go back and play something that I have been loyal to. Again, I still don't kind of get upset about things that happen with Destiny 2. I'm like, if there's something that upsets me with Destiny 2, I just walk away from it and then come back to it 3 months later. But I considered all the games that I have been, a player of beyond kind of the 40-hour one-and-done point, and that was Destiny 2. So I went back to that to continue playing my Hunter and the Witch Queen campaign. Continue to have tons of fun with that. Never gets old. So had a good time. You want to talk to us a little bit about Diablo Immortal coming to PC? I think you're muted right now.
Thank you. So yeah, Diablo Immortal, once only mobile exclusive game from Blizzard, is now coming to PC. It's actually going to be a beta when it comes out on PC. I guess they're still working on it. Kind of a quote here that they said, excuse me, the PC version, therefore, the PC development for that, hold on a second, I'm sorry. I'm jumping around on this article here. I'm trying to find the one quote that I saw earlier. It's important for us to ensure that the Immortal will deliver an uncompromised AAA mobile experience when played on PC. So that is why they're kind of just releasing it as a beta when it first comes out. It'll come out at the same time, June 9th, I believe, or June 2nd, I'm sorry, for both PC and mobile. But like I said, PC will be a beta. And they kind of figured, since people would probably try to, put it on PC or mod it or, try to play it on PC, they were just like, you know what, we're just going to, throw it on PC. We'll just dedicate some time to get it over to the PC instead of, people kind of fiddling and, having trouble trying to play it on PC. So that was kind of the rationale behind releasing on the PC right now. So.
Yeah, I guess try to play it on an Android emulator through BlueStacks or some craziness like that.
Yeah, which is kind of funny that they say that, but then they're pretty much like they're going to have to probably kind of fiddle with it anyways when it's the kind of beta version. So,
right.
But it should hopefully be at least functional at the very least. So we'll see how that.
Well, it should be. I can't remember. I can't remember if the Windows 11 rollout of of being able to use run Android apps on top of Windows should be out by then. I want to say it should be.
Oh, yeah.
So, it should be much less of a shot put throw than, it would have been otherwise, considering that some of that work, underneath the, behind the curtain has kind of already been done. But
yeah,
not saying that they're standing it up and delivering it that way as an executable, but at least the discussions and the collaboration and, some of the baseline code that would have been that would be a derivative byproduct of that should be helpful and, should help them cover the distance that they have to go between the mobile version and the PC version. Next up on my playlist is I'm going to be playing Warframe. This was actually what I was planning on playing instead of Destiny 2, but there's a stinking nit with Warframe, and it drives me nuts. It's bitten me a couple times where I have a standard password algorithm that is a certain number of total characters and special characters and etc. And the website accommodates that, but the in-game password entry field does not accommodate that. So I monkeyed around with, forgot my password on the website and got that working, and then went to log into the game and it wouldn't work. And I kept banging my head against that wall for a while until I finally realized that's absolutely the correct password. There's no way that it's not. I just changed it. Let me see if the game doesn't accommodate that specific set of special characters, and that turns out that's what the problem is. So I had to change my password again, but by then I was angry, and I had already moved on to play Destiny 2, and I didn't get the password thing corrected until the following morning. So I will be going back to Warframe. What are you going to be playing here next?
Yeah, so Nintendo Switch Sports will be actually coming out tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
Or maybe midnight tonight, I think, or something. But I'm not gonna stay up to play this. But yeah, I'll play it tomorrow. So it's the sequels to the Wii Sports, and I think Wii Sports Resort was the second title. I never played that one, but I always enjoyed the Wii Sports back in the day. So they have some of the sports here in Nintendo Switch Sports, but they have newer ones too. So it'll be interesting to see some of the new stuff that they have created.
Okay, very cool.
Next week.
Very cool. Next, PickZ PlayZ Assignment. So for the next month, you guys are welcome to join along and play with us, so you can get the experience and join in the conversation. Explore the metaverse. Spend some time playing a game that treads in any way on the concept of the metaverse. At its most basic, this can be a famous personality as a key voice actor in a game, or a famous actor being incorporated via motion capture, mocap in the game, all the way up until the modern takes of LTEs, I'm thinking of how in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, you had Bruce Willis and Rambo in the game. So that point being, that's not just putting another character or IP in the game, that's putting another character or IP in the game in conjunction with that being a limited time event or limited time mode, which is, an additional vertex of the metaverse. Either modern takes of LTEs and LTMs featuring characters, other media IPs, or intermixing of products, personalities, and IP. So Fortnite does another Travis Scott's concert, that counts, etc. My at least initial approach on working on this assignment is going to be going back and playing Command & Conquer Remastered, which was kind of the lowest level of kind of a metaverse play where you had a ton of famous actors like Tim Curry and stuff in those games doing the motion capture and all of kind of the story-based elements, which were kind of background, content for the actual RTS mission-based stuff that was in it. And so that's what I'll be starting off with. Tao, anything else?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was kind of thinking about this one. I'm not sure what I'll be playing on this one. I'll have to think about this one, see what games I have. I'm sure I got plenty of games with guest stars. I mean, I could do Fortnite, I guess, but that's kind of copping out. I don't want to do that, so I'll think of one.
Okay. All right, next week, TaoMaster will be in the hot seat as the host. I will be back as well. Hopefully DBQ will be able to join us. So my apologies for running over tonight and doubling down on the news, which we said we were going to skew away from, but we kind of had to talk about, the earnings reports and the upcoming showcase. So that's why you got that extra content. Without any further ado, thanks so much for joining in. This has been episode number 239 for the 28th of April, 2022. We will see you guys next week for, what is next week? Is that May 4th? 5th? Somewhere around there. It's next Thursday night. You guys can punch it into a calendar and figure it out. So thanks so much for joining in. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Play the games that you like, and come here to talk about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube. I've been joined by my co-host, TaoMaster99. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.
Abukate